Hello, I'm Annie Haas, and you can find me on Instagram at This.Bird.Knits, and you can also find my designs on Ravelry as This.Bird.Knits, all one word. Today I'm going to do a little tutorial video for how I work a dip stitch, which are these fun little stitches here, which is a technique that I'm using in this new design that I'm working on to work the increases in my yoke. So each time you work a dip stitch, you're actually creating a new stitch, and unless you do something to decrease in that row or round or a subsequent row or round, you're going to end up with extra stitches. So I decided to use that to my advantage for this design. So if you're knitting along with me, I'm going to be working round 31 of my pattern. So for this round, you're going to knit 3 stitches. Then you're going to work a dip stitch 9 rounds down, and then you're going to knit 9 stitches across and then work another dip stitch to create a fun little V. So I'm going to show you how I do that. So I've knit my first 3 stitches. This is just my beginning of the round marker. Then I want the center stitch, and you can see I can look down on my previous rounds and there's my center column. So that should be the 5th stitch on my needle. So I'm going to count in 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I want to make sure that that's the right column going down to my stitches that I dipped out of, and then I'm going to count down 9 V's or 9 stitches from that 5th center stitch, not including the one that's on my needle. So I need to count down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then in that 9th V I'm going to stick the tip of my right hand needle right there in the center of the stitch, and I'm going to knit, wrapping my yarn around just like I would knit a normal stitch, and then I'm going to pull that loop up through my knitting. Kind of have to pull it a little bit, and there I've made the first leg of my dip stitch. So now I'm going to knit my 9 stitches across. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can make sure that my dip is coming out of that center stitch, that 5th stitch there. So that's 5. That's a little way to check my work. 6, 7, 8, 9, and then I'm just going to dip again. Now for the second leg of the dip, I don't need to necessarily go down and count down rounds because I already have my little center hole where I'm going to be dipping through. So I'm just going to take the tip of my right hand needle again. I'm going to stick it right in that center hole right there where my stitch is dipped out of, wrap my yarn around as if to knit, and then I'm going to pull that loop through. See how it just pulls up and through? So this technique is actually really fun. It is a little bit finicky at first, so one of the things that's really important when you work this is that you aren't having your tension pull too tight. So one of the things I like to do is really kind of tug on my knitting to make sure that it's going to lay flat. If your tension is too tight for your dips, it's going to cause your fabric to kind of scrunch up, and it's not going to lay nice and flat and pretty like you want it to. So I'm going to do that one more time just so you can get a feel for it. Again, if you've never done this technique, it's super fun, super easy to work once you get the hang of it. I do recommend practicing it, if for nothing else, just to make sure that your tension is okay. So I'm going to knit, if I can find my little tail here, I'm going to knit 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to dip down again. So again, I'm going to count the 5th stitch in on my needle, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I'm going to count down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's my 9th one. So right in there, I'm going to stick my tip of my needle right in the center of that 9th column, and I can make sure that it's lining up with my previous dips. For at least this design, I'm having them all line up in neat little rows, and then I'm just gonna pull that up and through, again giving it a nice tug to make sure that it's not pulling too tightly. Then I'm gonna knit my 9 across, And you can always double check to make sure you're coming out of that 5th or the center stitch, at least for this round of the column. So that's the 5th stitch. Okay, and then I'm going to dip down into that little hole that I've already created from the first leg of my stitch there. So I'm going to take the tip of my right hand needle. I'm going to stick it right through that hole, pulling it up through the back, and then I'm just going to wrap my yarn around as if to knit, and then I'm going to pull that loop up and through. And again, you just want to give it a nice tug so that you know it's going to lay flat. It does create a little bit of a hole, or almost like an eyelet there. I kind of like that, but it's just a little technique. So there you go, that's the dip stitch. I hope you enjoyed this, and if you are looking for this pattern, it is in the test knitting phase right now, and it will be releasing sometime later this year. This yarn is Brooklyn Tweed Arbor DK. I believe the colorway is called Parka, and this is a pattern that I designed for Hedgehog Fiber's new DK based Tweedy, which is an awesome yarn. I highly recommend it. All right, thanks for tuning in. Happy knitting.